inspector on the project. I'm going to introduce our director, Nai Shui, in just a minute, but I just wanted to say a couple of things. The Water District has contracted for this work with Balfour Beatty Infrastructure, Inc. We started last July. So the district has a contract with this large contractor to build the project, but we also have a contract with HDR Inc. They're our consulting construction manager, and that's who Dan works for. And Dan's going to make a presentation later on tonight. So at this point, I'd like to introduce our director, Nai Shui.
Thank you, Mike. I think I need a mic. Good evening, everyone. Thank you very much for coming to this this is our second quarterly meeting on the update of the project that's going on in the Rinconada treatment plant. I want to first recognize two guests, the Town of Los Gatos council member, Mr. Rob Rennie.
Yes,
Yeah. Thank you for coming to this meeting. And also we have Ms. Angelica Torre, who is a field representative for Jim Bell's office. Yeah. So thank you for coming to this meeting. So as I said, this is our second quarterly meeting, and the Water District is committed to have quarterly meetings and report to you about our progress and also listen to your concerns about construction or inconveniences caused by construction. At our first meeting, I said that this project will benefit the water supply for the entire Santa Clara County. Our water supply infrastructure is connected, so it's not divided by cities or by board directors elected district. It's really an interconnected, complex infrastructure for the entire county. We have 3 drinking water treatment plants. Rinconada treatment plant is the oldest treatment plant. It's really time for a rehab and then rehabilitation, and also a improvement to the reliability of Rinconada treatment plant. And although this project will benefit everybody in Santa Clara County, the unfortunate part is that the construction is happening right in your backyard. You as the neighbor, you are burdened most of the inconveniences. So we really, really appreciate your patience and working together with the Water District, and also for the larger benefits of the whole community. And I said it exactly the same thing at the first quarterly meeting. If you were there, I said it again, but it's only because that I really think it is important for us to express our appreciation for you burdening the inconvenience of construction, but then at the end, it's really going to benefit the larger good of the entire Santa Clara County. So again, thank you, and then we have some presentation prepared, and then also a question and answer at the end of the session.
Just to follow up on our last meeting, we had several specific requests, and just to let you know that we listened closely to what the concerns you expressed at this meeting. One of those concerns was about the flag. The flag got tattered from the storms, and so we replaced the flag. We had some concerns about the height of the buildings, and on our blog site we went back and just that's posted now, right, Tony? We posted a rendering of the project so that you could see what the height of the new buildings were constructed. If you may have noticed that the walls for some of the buildings are now formed up, and so you're getting a sense of the scale and the size of the buildings that we're constructing. Specifically, these buildings right here, these are flocculation and sedimentation basins. So this wall and part of this wall is constructed now, so you can see from the street the height of the buildings. We haven't started working on this building yet. And the last request that we received at the last meeting was to delineate where the tree removals are on the perimeter of the project. So we posted a map on our blog site that shows the location of the trees that we were considering taking out towards the end of the project, in the last phase of the project. It's a 5-year project, and we won't get to those tree removals until much later on. So we have had a few neighbor calls during since the last quarterly meeting, and we've been responding to those. But at this point, I think it might be helpful if I turn the microphone over and give Dan or a chance to go through the slide presentation that we prepared for tonight. And then, like I said, we'll take questions and try to make answers at the end of the presentation. You want to use that?
If anyone has trouble hearing me, let me know. I can speak pretty loud, and I'll gladly speak louder before I have to use that mic. I'm in a point with the mic, so forgive me for that. But if you can't hear me, put your hand up, and I'll definitely speak louder. So good evening, I'm Dan Orr. I'm the construction manager for the Rinconada water treatment plant reliability project. Very excited to be here. Glad to see so much interest on, of course, the big Warrior night tonight against Oklahoma. What we have going on is basically there's 4 purposes to this. I've got a slide here. I want to talk about this slide in a minute. The purpose of my presentation is 4-fold. Let's talk about the projects outside the fence line of the water treatment plant. It's at 400 Moore Avenue, shown right here on the screen. Second is I'll talk about what's been going on there. Currently in there, I have photographs of ongoing construction that you probably can't see from the street. Third is to talk about what will be going on for the next 6 months or so in the project site. And fourth, and most important, is to hear your questions and comments. We really want to hear what you care about, not so much what I want to present. So what interests me may not interest you, so gear up your questions and your comments, and we'll go from there. So that's the introduction. We have here, this is Moore Avenue right here, familiar with. North is to your left-hand side. Most of the construction work, this is a rendering of the water treatment plant at completion of the project, which will happen on July 20th, 2020. So we're about 6 or 8 months into the project construction, and a long ways to go. A lot of heavy lifting is going right here in the Flock-Sed Basin, wash water recovery facility, and then the ozone contactor. And then there's another stretch right down here, which is the raw water facility, metering facility. So we have Moore Avenue here, and then this is Capistrano, and then this is Granada, and mostly you're orientated to the plant itself. The operations building is here, and most of all this work is done, already completed. There are 3 contractors on the site. The biggest contractor is Balfour-Beatty, which is the reliability contractor. There's 2 other contractors that are finishing up their work. As Amoroso is finishing up the operations building. Then down here we have what's called the residual building, getting rid of a belt press and putting in centrifuges. And so there is why I tell you that is there's contractors on the site not related to my project. They're troublemakers. Troublemakers for me. No, I'm joking. They're great. They're easy to work with, but it's a very confined site. So a lot of the truck traffic that comes in is not related to my project. And we end up getting, Tony gets calls and calls me and says, is it your truck or my truck? Whose truck? So we go through a process of figuring it out and vetting it. We try to figure out whose trucks they are and make steps to make sure that the trucks are doing what they're supposed to be doing onto the site. So anyway, let me get going on some of this. We talk about truck traffic outside the thing, talk about what's going on in the project, upcoming work next 6 months, then your comments and questions. So this is an interesting slide. It's a little bit of a difficulty. On the vertical axis is trucks coming to the site per day. And so at the high point, we had almost 120 trucks coming to the site in one day. And these are big trucks. These are the hauling trucks or the concrete trucks. The blue is hauling trucks. Excavations, we're doing a fair amount of excavation of the site, taking dirt away from the site. There's no spoils being piled on the site itself. So all the trucks come in, they get loaded up, and they go out the same day they come in. So we count how many there are. The red are actually how many concrete trucks are coming onto the site. So we're getting more and more. We're getting out of the excavation phase of the project. There's still more excavation to go on. We're getting more and more into the reinforced concrete phase, where we need a whole lot of ready-mix trucks coming onto the site. So if this coincides exactly with the EIR, the plans for the project, and the design, that we would have trucks at the peak near about 120 trucks per day. And so we're more or less over that. So when we go forward from here, what you're going to see is, if you live in the neighborhood, what we had December, January, and February is what we're going to have going forward, probably for about the next 6 months. There's going to be some days where there's quite a few trucks where we have major pours, but there's other days where there'll be no trucks at all. And right here we have, for September, 30 little lines here, and you can see lots of them are completely blank. There's no hauling or concrete work going on. Not that there's not work on the site, but there's no actual truck traffic associated with the project. So the contractor work restrictions. Contractor work restrictions on this contract, we went through an exhaustive environmental impact report. It said, what are we going to do to this contractor? Unlike most contractors, they get to start working at 7. This contractor starts working at 8, restricted to working from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., 5 days a week. Not allowed during the normal mode to work on Saturdays or Sundays. And that's what he has to live with. Most other contracts would allow weekend work and extended hours. There are exceptions to the 8 to 5 hours, and that's during special shutdowns or emergencies. To date, we've had no emergencies, but we have had some major shutdowns, which is just per the project schedule, where we have to shut down the plant. When the plant's shut down, not producing water, it's a special mode where we want the contractor to finish a whole lot of work in a hurry. So we give him a longer time. From 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. is the normal mode to complete his work on that time. We finished 2 4-day plant shutdowns. Next week we do a 5-day plant shutdown starting on Monday morning, and it will go until Friday night, and everything will be back up. During that time, there should be no interference at all with any water service deliveries, quality of water. None of that will happen. It's already been programmed. This is the last shutdown, that major shutdown we will have until November 15th of this year. So this is an abnormal mode next week. Then we'll be in steady state, 8 to 5 work Monday through Friday. And so then the contract noise, so the only thing that wasn't, only impact that wasn't fully mitigated in the environmental impact report was noise. And so in there are special provisions for the contractor to make due diligence, to make efforts to keep the noise down on site. So he's supposed to use electric over pneumatic tools where practical. He's to use whisper quiet generators, and then also they're not to rev their engines of their trucks or do any jake braking, things of that nature. So we are doing cognizant of the neighborhood that we're around, and try to do our best to keep the noise within the plant down to workable minimum. But there's quite a bit of heavy lifting going on inside the fence lines. Contractor won't make noise set between the hours where he's allowed to work. He won't park equipment or stockpile any equipment or materials outside the water treatment plant site. So you shouldn't see anything from the reliability project on your streets at all. They're not to park there before they get allowed to get onto the plant site, not to be there. We have made arrangements so that some of the contractor personnel in the privately owned vehicles will come to the site early. They're coming out of the Central Valley, a lot of these laborers are, and they'll park down at Safeway. They're allowed to do that. That seems to be a good place for them to wait until the gates are open at the Rinconada water treatment plant for them to come in there and start their work. And then they're also there's the stage themselves, so they're not queuing up traffic, especially on Moore. They have to do that left-hand turn down coming where there's a hillside there. Want to make sure things are done safely. We're trying our very best to not be disruptive to the public. So they come onto the site, they stay on the site generally all day until they leave the site. And then another requirement is that keep haul trucks on haul routes. I'll show you the haul route in a slide coming up. And also we'll keep the streets clean. So there's a continuous, whenever there's a hauling operation going on, there's continuous street sweeping, from about 9 o'clock until 5 p.m. And there is a requirement for the contractor to work safely. And so, and most importantly, most of the safety plan is associated with the worker safety, making sure people on site, operator, maintenance safety, and worker safety, but paramount and above all of that is public safety. So we want to make sure that whatever the contractor does, he keeps the public safe. That's his first and primary goal. Secondary to that is inside the plant safety. We don't take that, safety is very important throughout, but we really care about the public. You have no right getting hurt associated with any project we're doing. So what we have, anytime there's any disruptions on the street, they have to have flaggers out there. Sometimes they're bringing in incredibly big equipment. They can't make the turn. They have to zigzag back and forth, the three-point turns to get into the driveways. We make sure that they have flaggers out there slowing things down, making sure it's safe for them. And then we have special conditions associated with the children coming into this school, Rolling Hills Middle School, where we look at what the time that school starts and don't allow trucks to make this turn. And I'll show you the turn comes off of Pollard straight on, left turn onto Moore Avenue, and that's the truck route that's established. There's no other route for the trucks to allow them to take. They have to come through that intersection. So we restrict, when school's in session, when are they allowed to do it? So we give an hour window in the morning where we know there's children coming to this school. We don't let any truck traffic come in there and exacerbate the situation of the intersection. It's already hopefully not dangerous, but it can't be helped by more trucks being there. So we wait till the kids are in school and then we allow the trucks to come in. And also at the end of the day, when the school's getting out of session and kids are leaving and a lot of parents are coming in here, a lot more traffic, we restrict the no truck traffic at that time. And so you can see it's got a Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Trucks aren't allowed to come in here, except between the hours shown, and then Wednesday has special school hours. So we work very well with the school. The school's been great to work with, and so far there hasn't been any incidents that I've heard of associated with any children coming to school or leaving school. Truck penalties. One of the things that's a little bit unusual is I've been doing this for many years. Construction management, and rarely do you see contract requirements that talk about restrictions to the contractor on how he gets to the project site. Our contract does restrict it, has a very specific truck traffic route, and also there's associated penalties for failure to comply with the route, comply with the hours they're allowed to come to the project site, etc. So to date we've collected about $3,500 from the contractor for truck violations. They've had 7 truck violations. And what's happened, which is really good, is the contractor has been good to work with. Paul Forbetti is an international large constructing firm, but it's got their attention. If the truckers themselves are going to have to pay this, and the companies, then they'll say they'll fly straight, as they say. So they're working well with us. That's why it's only $3,500 and a lot more, because there are some teeth to put into the contract. This is the haul route. Got Highway 17 right here. Then get off at Camden or Lark Avenue, get up onto Knowles to Pollard. And we're right here now at Rolling Hills, and then up straight up more. And then there's a little. Then they go down Capistrano and Granada to get onto the site itself. So if trucks associated with my project, if they're off that route, that's a penalty. That's $500 every time we catch them. We actively investigate when we get called. And now we'll go on to some photographs of recent construction that's going on. All this picture is looking to the north, so it's looking towards Capistrano. It's off the end of the deck of where the current filters are. And it's a little grainy here, but on the right-hand side is where the gentlemen are tying up more rebar mats. That is rebar where the ozone contactor will be. To the left of that is the flock and sed basin. Flock and sed is about 21 feet above ground level. Ozone generator will be about 28 feet above ground level. So you can get a feel for how tall the facilities are. The ozone generator is the tallest, ozone contactor, I'm sorry, is the tallest facility on the site on the north end. So you can see where the flock and sed project. 7 feet greater will be the ozone contactor. And so as you can see, the contractor is putting down a 30-inch thick heavily reinforced concrete foundation mat. Then he's got 24-inch walls at the top that are tapered down to 30 inches at the bottom, so it's very heavily reinforced concrete. So the good thing about all the concrete work is it should last decades and decades. It should last 100 years. I think the actual EIR says 50, but we're putting in stuff far better than that. So this will last for a long time. And so the good news is we will disrupt you, but hopefully it won't disrupt your children or grandchildren. This is closer up, just looking at the flock and set basin walls. Again, heavily reinforced. Foreground is wall forms. Contractors continue to do good work on this confined site. Here's the picture where the crane is flying a wall of reinforcing steel. Kind of a nicer picture compared to some of these. Next is the end walls. This is where the end of the flocculation basin, where it comes out of the ozone contactor through a mixing facility for some chemicals, and then it gets injected here so that we can continue to process the water. And then this one is not a very interesting photograph, but is that the furthest north we get with actual construction. There is some tree removal and some landscaping that does occur on the project later on, but this is the raw water metering facility, and it's the closest to Capistrano Way as it gets. There's some work next week that will go on till 8 o'clock where they got some pipeline work that's going on here. So there'll be some lights once it gets dark. We'll make sure that the lights don't point towards the street or towards the houses, but we're just going to accommodate it. So just wanted to, if you live on Capistrano, you may be interested in this. And then we go on to the contractor schedule. It's fairly boring. I won't read you the bullets, but what you saw in the current construction will go on for about 6 more months. The same thing, only advancing the project. So he's going to do about $40 million more, $50 million of work left to do this calendar year. So he's got a lot of work to do to finish those facilities that we pointed out. And so that's the next 6 months. Trucking will be similar to what it's been the last 3 months over the next 6 months. We have 2 more public meetings. After this one, before we start getting into other phases, more interesting pictures to show, and an update on truck traffic and what changes may be happening in your neighborhood. Now my favorite part. Questions and comments, and anyone have any questions or comments or thoughts?
So I missed the first committee. Could you just give me an overview of what you're doing here?
Let me look. This slide works.
Yeah.
I wish I had the existing slide, but what we're doing is we're converting 80 million gallon a day water treatment plant to 100 million gallon a day. So it's a small 20% increase in capacity of producing water. And we're changing the way the plant actually operates. It has 4 very large upflow clarifiers. They'll be replaced with this flock and set basin. The upflow clarifiers are right here, right now, and there's filters where this grassland area is shown on the finished rendering. Then the other big change is that they're adding pre-ozonation, so the raw water comes into the plant down here and goes up to this facility here, which is the ozone contactor. Ozone generator building is located here, and then so they disinfect with ozone as it comes into the treatment plant, which is a modern way to do it. The original plant was built in 1968, commissioned in 1968, and doesn't have any ozone right now. So adding ozone will help water quality tremendously and ease the amount of chlorine or chloramines that you need to add to your water. So then it comes out of the chlorine contactors, go straight into flock and sed, and this is where you settle out any solids that may be in the raw water before it goes into these series of filters here. There's 12 filters that we'll be putting it into, and it will replace the existing old filters. So these are sand and carbon-based filters to make potable water, and then it goes off into the treatment facility on the far side over here. So it's about $180 million over 5 years for the contractor to do it. And one of the reasons, it's a long time. So why does it take so long? Is we can't basically turn off the plant in order to build these things. So we end up building parts of trains, or a lot of the work in the north area, and then flop them over, and then you have to build some more, and then flop them over. So the plant has to operate on old filters and new filters at the same time. It has to, give room to get rid of the upflow clarifiers That's in 2017. So there, it's kind of like, it's a very small footprint, it's very challenging to the contractor. He doesn't have much room to work on, he doesn't have much of a laydown site. So that's in general terms. Did I miss any major points, Mike?
Did that satisfy your question?
Yeah, when you shut the plant down, do you still supply water,
Yes.
or, so that's not really shut down?
I'm a consultant, construction manager, but water supplied continuously, and basically they live, as I understand it, they can live off the storage for certain periods of time. From November 15th to March 15th is their low flow period, where they're normally down to about 40 million gallons a day, and all set. And so they watch the weather, watch what's going on, and allow us to do periodic shutdowns for short durations, where they can provide customers with water from stored water.
Steve, maybe you'd like to.
So, yeah, so for the most part, when the plant is shut down, we're not producing water. And typically, if you look up the tanks up on top, there's 3 tanks up there. The 2 up on the upper are belong to San Jose Water, that down. And then that one there is the Rinconada Reservoir, which you see that skirts around Moore Avenue. Each one of them is roughly 14.5 million gallons. San Jose Water owns and operates those 2, and we operate that one. That's actually the beginning. The Rinconada Reservoir is actually the beginning of the West Pipeline. So we actually have a limited amount of storage. 14.5 million gallons doesn't go a very long way. So when we do our shutdowns, we actually limit our retailers from taking any water during that period of time. So some of our retailers are a little bit underwhelmed as far as what they can produce by themselves. Mountain View is one of them, so we allow them to what we call sip off the pipe while we shut down. So we actually have a limited amount of supply that we can give them. But typically the rest of our retailers are actually shut off when we shut the plant down. Our Rinconada is a little different. We're the only water treatment plant on the west side of the valley. On the east side, there's 2 other water treatment plants that can work off themselves. So one can shut down, one can bring up their production, and they can balance themselves. We don't have that ability here on the west side.
So how big an area do we supply from this plant?
Our furthest turnout is Mountain View, which is how many miles, Catherine? 15 miles? Yeah. So it's a, and then we kind of branch out too as well. We have a giant pipe. Large pipe, 72-inch pipe, and in Mountain View, I believe it's down to 24-inch. And then we have the Santa Clara spur, the Campbell spur. So we have it branches out a little bit. So it's a pretty wide vast area. Did that help?
Yeah.
Who designed your restrictions? Is that coming from the town?
It's part of the restrictions that we have. It is in coordination with the town, the development of the environmental impact report. So they looked at all of the identified and had a consultant do a lot of work for what kind of impacts this project would create, then work closely with the town to develop these restrictions. And I think the hall route was specifically developed in coordination with the town.
And I think that there's lots of lessons learned when we upgraded the other 2 treatment plants, the sanitaries, particularly the penitence and water treatment plant. There's major construction for that project for a while, and there are lots of issues, and then we learned great lessons from construction of that treatment plant and then applied to
So a lot of it really came from suggestions from the Santa Clara County Water District and the town. Just said, yeah, that sounds good. Maybe that is.
that level of detail, I don't know, but it's always like working together with local cities.
So, I went down to the city of Las Vegas, and what they said is the Public Utilities Commission oversees the project. They don't have any say as far as like environmental impact or even the design. It's all regulated by the Public Utilities Commission. But I have a question.
Let me clarify that.
Yeah.
The Public Utilities Commission regulates the San Jose Water Company. The Water District is the lead agency for CEQA. And so our environmental impact report was prepared by our consultant, and then it was certified by our board.
Right, but not. Okay.
Maybe it's because of South Water Company has its own project going
just want to make sure that we're not regulated by the Public Utilities Commission.
But who regulates the design?
Well, the design was prepared by a consultant that was under contract with the Water District, with the staff of our capital division.
Okay, I'm sorry, I misunderstood. I think someone had said they coordinated with what was downtown Los Gatos.
Well, I think it's a combination, to clarify a little bit what Director Schwade mentioned was that we learned a lot of lessons when we did these kind of projects on the east side of San Jose. Those were about 10 years ago. So we knew what would be a good approach to take so that we wouldn't upset the neighborhood. And that's the hour restrictions, keeping the streets clean, be very careful that we didn't send trucks through the school zone at the time kids are coming to school. So we put those restrictions in our EIR. Then the town reviewed the EIR, the draft EIR, and they made further suggestions on things they thought would make it even better. And that had to do with the haul routes, with also about hauling truck traffic.
That's for more of the project that's in place, but what about the environmental impact of like the neighborhoods, the view that we get? I had a question in regards to I don't know if you call it the ozone or the population of the north.
This is the Fox said, this is the ozone contactor.
So what is the tallest, the highest
This
building there?
is the tallest one,
Which is how many feet?
28 feet above ground level.
20 feet, okay. I read something this morning, I think Tony posted it, it mentioned 33 feet for the...
I think that might be including the handrails or something, but it's on the top of it's a flat roof, the top curve of the wall is about 28 feet above. And I may be off by 6 inches or something on that, I'm just adding the decimal, but it's about 28 feet from ground level.
We did put the height of the handrail on the rendering that's on the blog site because we didn't want anybody to come back later and say, well, you never told us about the handrail. So that is included in the description.
So my concern is, I mean, I walk more, I live in back by Montclair, and, you know, we walk it every day, we drive it every day, we have a beautiful view of the city lights, and I don't know, can you describe whether there be any impact at all, any of the height obstructing any of it, whether or not it's the trees you guys are putting in, or whether or not it's the building, or whether or not it's the lights that you guys are illuminating, the building structures, the offices that are going on top, or any of that impact at all the view?
Tony, did we post that rendering that Stephanie sent up?
Not yet, we just got the renderings today.
What we did before we started the project was we met with the neighbors on Los Patios. They're these neighbors.
They're on the front side.
They live right along here, and we superimposed the view that they have from their homes and the construction here,
Right.
to see what the impact would be. And the height of this building here did not encroach into their view of the cityscape, of the downtown skyline. So, you know, that looked good on the renderings, and we're doing the construction now. And so, one of the things that we measured many times was there was a telephone pole here, and we knew that telephone pole was about the height of the tallest building. And when you're standing over here, you're up here, and if you look, you can see over the top of that pole towards downtown.
Right, but you don't, I mean, so those people have trees that block their view to begin with because they come in from the backside, Rinconada, the private.
Well, they have decks that are above the height of those trees.
Right, and then they have the tree lines which block a lot of it. But in terms of like the people that, you know, are up on top of Moore, you know, up by the station, so that's where I'm referring to in walking down. I mean, not necessarily, I mean, the residents, yes, but I'm talking about coming off of Moore.
We didn't do any
Further
geometry.
south.
No,
Yes, further south.
he's talking about he's walking along here,
Right.
and they're looking across the plant site, and they
Whether or not
want
it's
to know,
walking or driving,
will
right?
the height of the buildings encroach into the
Correct.
cityscape? And we did not do any geometry to investigate that option, but it's my opinion that that will not happen, that the height of the buildings are not high enough to encroach, because this crest here is quite a bit higher than the site, so I think you will be looking over the top. One thing you can see sometimes when we're looking at these, the height of these trees back here and then on the Rinconada golf course, and you can see those trees above the buildings. So the buildings don't get higher than the trees, in other words. So I think we investigated this as thoroughly as we possibly could when we were preparing the environmental impact report.
Okay, because I read it and I didn't see it. I didn't see it.
One other thing you mentioned too was lighting. We did specifically design all the lighting on the project not to shine towards the neighborhood. The lighting is necessary for safety of our operations personnel at night. So we direct the lighting in ways that makes it safe for our on-site personnel, but the lighting was specifically designed not to shine into the neighborhood.
Okay, so you guys sent out newsletters to the English Oaks Homeowners Association. You guys have an old list, so when talking with the neighbors where we live, you know, it is a concern, it's everyone's concern, and I told them I would come today just to hear what you guys have to say about it, but you guys have the wrong listing for English Oaks Homeowners Association. So if you guys can update it, or maybe I can provide you guys with an update, and if you can put together a report or something where it does show us the environmental impact of that, that would be great.
Okay, just a little background. This is about our 6th public meeting that we've had since we started design of the project. When we hold public meetings, we notice a certain perimeter around the plant by letter. And so during the course of these meetings, we've collected sign-in sheets from people that come to the meetings, and we add them to our distribution for when we update our blog. And we've had people join our blog, and I think right now, if I'm not mistaken, Tony, we're up to about 2,500 people see each time we update the blog, they get a notification. So we've been very, I think we have a very robust outreach, and so we would be more than happy to add your homeowners association to the blog site and to our distribution. That's how we get information out. We update the blog almost weekly. We want people to know, especially if there's some extraordinary activity going on the plant. Or like I said at the last meeting, we had 2 or 3 specific concerns that I mentioned at the beginning of the meeting. So then we went back on the blog site and put the answers to those concerns so that the neighbor, and they're not here tonight, they could see the answer to their question. But also, it was no doubt a question that others might have. So we address those questions as they come up and get answers out through I think the most effective way is through this blog site.
Great. That's great. But can you guys still provide an environmental impact from those, from the top of the hill and from that area? To check the geometry of the Well,
view.
it would be a shame to block that view, and whether or not, like I said, and maybe the 28 is well below the view.
I think let me answer that, please. I think that at this point, it is what it's going to be. We can show you what it's going to be, but the height of that building that's sort of the fundamental, the foundation of the project.
And Mike, earlier you said you think it's probably going to be not blocking.
Right,
So,
and we can check that.
Can we just do the geometry and then show this
Yeah.
geometry?
Yeah, I'd be glad to do that.
Yeah, and also that if we have anything in our environmental document talking about that, can we?
Yeah, we have a whole section about.
But you're saying it doesn't matter, so why?
No, I didn't say it didn't matter. I said that we could check the geometry, but that the view from here, we can't change the height of this building if it encroaches on the view.
Yeah, so let's check the geometry, and then if there's an issue, maybe there's some mitigations that we can do. Yeah, but then, likely it's not going to be an issue, but we need to demonstrate to this gentleman.
Yeah, and I'll be glad to do that. Our architect can do those kind of can do this kind of geometry in an hour or less.
I was going to interject on here, the tallest this structure is the one that's been here since 1968, it's not being changed as part of this project. When you're at the top of here, you can see the operations building, but it's the tallest one by far, towers over this, although it's not right next to it.
It's a different angle.
I agree, it's a different angle, and I'm not trying to discount your thoughts, I'm just trying to say that that may be one of the structures you may be seeing, and it's like, we're not touching that.
And if you say it's not going to affect it, great, but I mean, I'm going to be here for the next 50, 60 years, and it would be a shame to destroy that view I have every single day.
Make sure we have your name and number, and we'll get in touch with you and figure out how best to massage your concerns. Or at least identify them, meet with you and figure this next step.
Question? Yeah, my house is the very bottom red roof house there, that one right there. And we appreciate that your representative came over and took pictures and stuff. I see some plants, it looks like large trees in boxes right now that are lined along the Moore side of on your side of the Moore Avenue. Will those be placed in the ground later on, or they will remain in the
Jensen Landscape.
We're hoping we don't have to see cement, because that's what we're seeing now. It's just
Okay.
rows and rows of cement.
If you notice in this rendering here, you can see these trees that are in boxes right along the side
Yeah,
of
that's what we're
the
at.
sedimentation basin. Those trees now are in boxes over here.
Okay.
And we put those trees along here to, in some ways, to screen the construction during construction, so that the view along here was not so much of the construction side, but of the trees that are screening the side. So most of those trees will be moved over here and then put in here. We also have trees and boxes all along here to make the view from down here better, because we do have quite a bit of activity in this area of the plant, and we spent a lot of money and time to get those trees in there to screen the site.
Because it doesn't look real pretty right now.
It doesn't
It's
look
just
very...
been a long
Not too pretty
year.
right now.
Well, it's been an amazing struggle to get those trees to survive. There's over 100 trees, and we started planting those trees 3 or 4 months ago, and at different times we've lost 10 or 15 of the trees. They just died. We're watering them. We got everything going, but they still just are struggling, and that's the reason they don't look so nice.
It's great they're out there. At least they got 4 or 5 years to grow while you're doing the project.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
Any other questions? Let's take your question first, please.
I'm just going to have the comments to make. When the plant shut down in January for the pipeline, the 72 of the pipe has been put in, we live on Rinconada. The house right in the bottom left-hand corner, we're next to that. Just on Rinconada, that's on the corner.
Oh, right.
So there was
Oh, further up, okay.
well, it's actually down. No. It's down.
It's down.
Off Granada, I'm sorry.
So we were right across the street from the construction that's going on. And I think we got there saying, there would be the power shutting down and it would be, would they be working till 8 o'clock at night. But that doesn't happen. They were working till 10 at night or later for some of the time. And I emailed Tony and I got a nice reply from them saying, we're sorry, yes, it's been working till 10. They're going to finish on Friday, and then hopefully, if they haven't finished on Friday, then they'll work on Saturday until 6 o'clock. Well, Saturday, came on, they were working on 10 to 10. And I don't mind, I understand it was raining, and it was a big job, and something goes wrong. I would be happy if I was told, we're hoping to do this, but we might run into problems. But when I'm told something and that doesn't happen, then I lose a bit of confidence. So that's all. But my second comment is, I walk my dog down on a little path and at the back of the Silk Creek. So I go past the Granada Gate, and at night, when they're closing, the traffic, I guess the workers
chime in if you don't mind, Mike. Okay, so you brought up two good points. One, the contractor worked later than he was supposed to work. He took a challenging amount of work for last January shutdown, and he's late. We're charging him $165,000 for his lateness on that. And we did work extra hours beyond what we told you, and I personally apologize. I was on the phone asking permission, we needed to get the plant back in service. That the 72-inch diameter pipeline had to be in. Contractor bit off more than he could chew, didn't quite get it. We had a leak on the pipe when we started to put it back into service, which caused us to go through conniptions. So we did have issues with it. We're charging the contractor for it. So on this shutdown that's coming off in March, we're doing very little at that site. You won't have this issue this time. I guarantee you, you won't be seeing lights on there. The other thing that I did, I left the site one time about 10:30 or 11 o'clock at night, and I drove purposely down Capistrano and Rinconada, and I saw lights flashing through the thing, and I mean, it's like, if you were out there, it must have looked like, prison scene or something. It's not good. So this time, we're making sure those lights are directed into the plant itself and be way more cognizant. So if there's any lights, they won't be on after 8 o'clock, and the lights that are going on between 6 p.m. or so when it gets dark, going forward on this shutdown, they're done at 8 o'clock. Now there is some provisions working in the existing plant. It could go 24/7. That's because it's indoor work and it won't be noisy, won't be lights, won't be all these issues that you saw into that first shutdown. I personally apologize. That was bad form from the contractor. We're going after him for it. I wish he was here. Let him talk about it.
Yeah, you called me, and Dan and I were talking. We took your call very seriously. We're really concerned. Well, we immediately notified one of your complaints that night was that the contractor was yelling back and forth at their people about the lights. So we got word immediately to the contractor to cut that out, get the lights out of the way. We had to continue the work. It was one of those operations that you just can't stop. One of the things that we understanding how we failed in that situation, well, there's two things that we're doing on the next shutdown. The one that starts next Monday is we're getting a lot of information out to people ahead of time that we're doing a shutdown. That's on the blog site. And like Dan said, the work that's going on in this area during the next shutdown is very minimal. They're going to cut the top off of a piece of 60-inch diameter pipe and lower the pipe by 1 foot and put it back together. Most of that, if not all of it, will take place during the day. Most of the rest of the shutdown work is going to happen over in this part of the plant, and it's removed from your location. So we apologize for that. It was kind of the worst case nightmare for us. On the Granada Gate situation, I'm glad to hear I'm not glad, but we've been monitoring that gate. It is trouble. We have up to 90 people on the site now working on the project. I don't like to hear that they're honking their horn when they leave. That's just not acceptable.
Not everybody does, but when they come down there,
We'll take action. We'll be really aggressive. They're supposed to be good neighbors. When there's clauses in there for the workers that they have to be respectful of the neighborhood. Honking their horn needlessly in the way goodbye to a guard is nothing they should be doing. And we appreciate it. I like the comment. We've gone down there. Rich Huffman, the chief inspector, has been down there many times, watching how people leave. We worry about people just racing out of the site, trying to get on the road or get ahead of the thing and racing through neighborhoods. We watch that and monitor it. So anytime we hear these comments, we take action. We don't just give you lip service. We'll go down there, we'll send an inspector down there to watch what's happening. We get the license plate, we'll go to the contractor. If it happens twice in a row on the same person, he's out of there. We got plenty of laborers we can get to replace these people. No, that's their responsibility. They should be responsible workers and not be disruptive, and that's needlessly disruptive. So we'll take action. Thank you for that comment.
Yes, go ahead.
Thanks. So I've got good news and a question. So the good news is I live over here and I can't quite remember seeing trucks. In fact, there were some trailers over here, I'm not sure whose they were. So it's been fine construction.
You're on Moore Avenue, across from Safeway.
I want to Elwood.
Elwood, yeah, behind. Okay. Well, good.
Been good.
Now, what's the news?
So the question is, it's my first
time here, and obviously it's been here for 47 years. I was wondering about earthquake safety. We have maximum credible earthquake 7.7 to 7.9, and not that I want to stop the project or anything, but like the Lenahan Dam, Lexington Reservoirs, top 85% worst, most hazardous dams in the nation. And if it inundates, you have a half hour to get out of the way. I know which way to run. So if this inundates, which way do I run and which way is it going to inundate? I was asking Tony for our map, and he's working on that, but which way do I run?
Those are good questions.
That's a great question.
You're not the first person that's asked that question. And so,
Which way is north first?
North is towards me.
so this is Moore Avenue and Capistrano. This is what's called Upper Gate and the Lower Gate. And this is the reservoir that Steve mentioned a minute ago. This reservoir is actually considered a dam and is regulated by the Division of Dam Safety, the state that certifies dam safety. So it gets inspected twice a year, and we have, we have under drains that measure if there's seepage going out of it, if there's an imminent failure of the reservoir, anything like that. We do have an inundation map that would show if this reservoir for some reason was to breach and where the water would go. So we can get that inundation map posted on our website. That's a reasonable request. All these buildings here will be storing quantities of water from time to time, but they're designed to the current seismic codes for the most restricted. And one of the things that Dan showed you earlier in the photographs is the 3-foot thick foundations and the 2-foot thick walls. The height, the width of those walls and the depth of those floors is dictated to a large extent by the seismic codes, the structural codes, to make sure that they don't crack or move during big earthquakes.
It looks like it's going east. Is that right?
A lot of it goes towards Smith Creek, right?
I would think it would come down more Avenue.
This looks like it's pretty fine.
Oh, that's right there. That 14 million gallons.
This is a little bit
This way.
up. Is this 14 and a half, so 43 and a half?
Yes.
It kind of looks like it's going a little bit this way, and most of that.
If I can jump in, actually the topography is where you see the 3 reservoirs, it slopes back towards the Moore Avenue where it comes around.
Okay.
So the reservoirs, it's all on the inundation map, so that's mostly where the water would go. And there's also,
You say this one?
No.
Back direction. Okay.
So- well, not for the people behind here, but, and then the rest of it, yeah, the inundation map shows it coming down.
Okay. All right.
Mike, when you put that map up, did you include the San Jose water tanks, San Jose Water Company tanks, not just yours?
Well, I'm not sure I can do that. The reason is that those are not considered dams under the Division of Dam Safety, I don't believe. And so they're not, the water company, I don't think is required to develop an inundation map. But I will check on that and find out. There's certain characteristics of this reservoir that they can fit the criteria for a dam. It has to do with this large embankment along here, I think. But these are more in-the-ground reservoirs. The San Jose Water Company has 50 or 60 of these reservoirs all over San Jose, and I don't think any of those are regulated by Division of Dam Safety. But I can check and find out. One thing, please go ahead.
So I have one comment about the dump trucks on Granada. The concrete trucks, which are laden when they come downhill, come down quite sedately and slowly. I understand because they've got a big load back. But some of the big dump trucks, not all of them, but some of them come around the corner from Capistrano to head on downhill in the middle of the road at quite a clip.
Yeah, yours isn't the first complaint that we've had about that. And every time we get a complaint, we go to the contractor and require them to take action. There have been subcontractors on the job that were fired off the job for violating the the traffic restrictions, and so we will take action on that. But we have had other concerns from neighbors along there about the truck swinging over so they can go in the gate if they're not aware.
Yes, they do, because as they get further down, I can understand why they do that. So my concern is less about the fact that they're having to take up all the road, rather than the guys seem to believe that they've got very good brakes. Stop
Yeah,
them.
they shouldn't be going that fast.
Should be going fast. It's an ongoing issue, and it's like, a lot of the truckers that come onto the site, they really don't have much to do with the site except to drive in and drive out. And so we try to get the best we can. We have Walter Betty doing a proactive, they work with all their subs, to include the truckers. They read them the riot act as best they can. What happens is we'll get a call and say someone's speeding, so we'll try to say, do you have a license plate, do you have a description, do you have anything else? And a lot of times it's somewhat nebulous. And so we go down there and we talk to the contractor. It's not like we take no action just because we're just trying to grasp an intro. And we talk to 4 or 5 of the truck drivers, and of course, it's not me. And so we do try to do it. That doesn't mean we're going to stop trying, but we can't afford to have a policeman there on that intersection and looking at the speed of everyone going down there for 5 years. And so it's one of those intermittent problems that we're trying to solve, and it comes up periodically. We'll read them the riot act. It seems to go good for a few days, and then sometimes it starts to.
I understand. This is concerned about it because I sometimes up at the top of the driveway.
Right.
One of these trucks comes in the corner and heads straight towards me.
No, it's a concern, and we want to solve the problem. I don't want
Yeah,
to.
it's not acceptable. We need for our contractor to take control of that situation, so we'll meet.
So what's the best way to go about that? I mean, I've bitched several times, and I came in late tonight, so I wasn't going to say anything out in front of everybody, but it's happening again. This week it's been a racetrack.
Going down,
primarily going up, because, you know, the semis are loaded going down, so they're gonna have to go a little bit slower, or they'll never make the stop sign at the end of the street. But cement trucks, it's, and I'm not saying it's every truck, but, and I'm not gonna, you know, I've toyed with the idea of putting a little sign out there or something, but this last week, it's been a racetrack again, and I know how difficult it is for you to, you know, go to all your different subs and tell them, but.
Well, if it's concrete, I know who to go to. So if you've seen concrete trucks going, using their Jake brakes or speeding down that road, I know who to talk to.
We'll
talk to them tomorrow.
It seems like it's more going up, and I can understand
You're
that.
talking about going up more.
I'm sorry?
You're talking about going up more.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Going up more loaded with
Going
cement.
down, yeah.
Okay. And the other trucks are loaded going down, so it's primarily coming up, and I can understand why, you know, there's that stop sign right there. They'd like to be able to roll right through it and make it up the hill a little bit easier, but coming up the hill to that first stop sign, there's been some real.
That's a great comment. We'll see what we can do. We'll think about, you know, I mean, it's just not trying to say we're going to talk about the drivers, but thinking outside the box, see what else we can do to try to solve the problem.
Then I have one other, again, I apologize if this has already been talked about, but a couple of people who live right near me have asked about the street sweeping. And I say, well, I go to the meetings, and, you know, we were getting complaints about never sweeping it. And now it seems like they're doing an outstanding job, even when there's not trucks coming up and down every day. And their comment was, well, how much of that asphalt does it take off? Is it stripping off some of the asphalt? And I said, one would think that it could be possible, but I do not know. I will ask. And they're, of course, concerned that over this 5 years, as it continues being swept, that, you know, the asphalt is going to get.
Yeah. Well, it's unlikely that the street sweepers are degrading the asphalt, but we did do what's called a pre-construction survey of the streets in terms of the integrity of the asphalt surface. That's part of our relationship with the town of Los Gatos. We go back at the end of the project and we look at those places that we surveyed and we make decisions about, do we need to overlay this street? What kind of, we're committed to returning the streets to the pre-existing conditions.
That's what I told these people. I said, you know, they won't really know until they're all done. And, you know, if it needs paving again, they're going to take care of it.
Yeah, that's in our, that's actually in our contract documents, the contractor's
I
obligated.
remember you talking about that previously.
Well, one thing that triggered for me to remind people, and I came up after our last neighborhood meeting, we left the meeting and there'd been a lot of questions, and the next day I was driving to the site and the contractor that's working for San Jose Water Company was out ripping up the street, and I thought, well, it would have been nice to have told the neighbors in the meeting that this was going to happen, because I think in some ways, whenever there's work in the streets, you kind of associate it with our project. So, tomorrow, not tomorrow, but in the next few weeks, Sanco Pipelines will be back seal coating the street where they just did the pipeline replacement for San Jose Water Company. They can't do that until the weather improves and the temperatures are right, but they will be. The seal coat's just like a thin slurry layer of asphalt that goes right over the surface. We checked with the town of Saratoga, and the Keto Road Bridge project is delayed until the summer of 2017. So that's a little update on that. As we've told you before, the detour route for that project on Keto Road will send some traffic on Moore Avenue, which will be a problem. And then finally, we checked with the town of Los Gatos for any work that they anticipated in the area. And the only work that they wanted us to mention tonight was for the Netflix on Winchester. And I think if you travel on Winchester, you don't need to be told that there's a lot of work going on over there, and it's affecting the streets and traffic around there. So, were there any other
I
questions?
just have a comment and a question. 2 days ago, the sweeper forgot to put on the water, so it was just a dust bowl everywhere. I guess normally they spray the water and then they dust or something.
Yeah.
The water wasn't on, so it was just a dust. Why? Maybe you just forgot.
Yeah, we've had some sweeper issues over the last few months. They did actually change out the driver for the sweeper. I don't know if you noticed that we have a new sweeper.
Yeah, the other guy was texting and driving at the same time.
We noticed at one point, Dan actually noticed that the backup beeper that should be on all heavy equipment wasn't working, so when the street sweeper was backing up to make his turns, it wasn't warning people behind him. So we'll remind them that they need to be sure that the water tank on the sweeper is topped up.
Okay. And then the question was, in terms of like the increased chemicals that will be housed there, is there, I mean, I'm assuming there's hazardous material there.
Okay, that question is also addressed in the VIR.
No, that's fine.
Steve knows more about this than me, I'm sure.
Existing, it takes chemical, we have certain chemicals to treat the water. We have the primary coagulants, which are metal salts, aluminum sulfate, ferric chloride. Hypochlorite, kind of like bleach, 12.5%. But nothing, we're not adding any more chemicals than we already have, except for at the end of the project, we're going to be using fluoride, adding fluoride.
Adding fluoride to the water?
Yeah. So that would be outside of ozone, which is generated on site. That would be the only other stored chemical outside of what we have existing.
Okay. When you asked about the earthquake, your first thing in mind, what chemicals are going to be running down?
None. Everything is double or triple contained. So we have some tanks that are double contained within a containment vessel. And regulations state that secondary containment has to hold 110% of our usable storage. So it's we have 10% over capacity. So even if we were, every single one of my chemical tanks were completely full, which they typically aren't, because we're utilizing on a daily basis, and we had an earthquake where those failed, they would be contained within the secondary containment. Right. And just kind of real quick, and then also all the tanks and everything are seismically sound for seismic event. So it would be, I think we'd be worried about a lot of other things that.
I'm south, he's north, so.
Yeah, yeah. It's, we take it very seriously because I have folks that work with this stuff. We have maintenance folks and stuff, so we're very conscious on how important it is to be safe and make sure that we don't have an accident. And so we build that into not only day-to-day activities, but we build it into our infrastructure and when we do these improvements. It's a big thing to think about.
When did they start fluoridating? I thought they stopped doing that.
We haven't started fluoridating yet.
Right. Okay, so it's,
Yeah, so
why
yeah.
didn't we start the fluoridation?
We've never, no, fluoridation.
Fluoridation.
Not chlorination. So we're going to be adding fluoride to the water, which is something new. We have not done that ever.
Why are
In the studio industry.
why adding fluoride to the water?
The board of directors has been contemplating that for a long time, and the county health, the main county health people are very much for it. It is supposed to prevent cavities. There are a number of people in the valley that can't afford dental care on a regular basis, and so the decision by the board was to add a fluoride to the water, really to help the majority of the population that doesn't have access to regular dental care. So it's going to be added at all 3 of our treatment plants over the course of the next 2 to 3 years.
What if we don't want fluoride in the water?
And we have to buy all the water that does not have.
You can filter it too.
I don't think
It doesn't, well, it doesn't filter.
RO, reverse osmosis is the only thing that would take it out.
So you're going to continue chlorine your water, right?
Yes,
And
and
it is,
we use chlorine as a primary disinfectant, and then we actually have chlorination as far as our final, which is we use ammonia to bind it, which is another process. But yes, we're going to continue to do that. And then as Dan or Mike knows, we're adding raw water ozonation. That will help the oxidation state of the colloidal. I'm getting geeky now, but the treatment process, so we won't have to use as much chlorine. So it's actually going to, save us from using that chemical in the quantities that we use.
yeah, I don't never smell the chlorine, but my wife does.
Yeah, some people are sensitive to it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
people are sensitive.
Is the chlorine liquid or powder?
It's liquid at 12.5%. So like household bleaches runs about 5.5%. So it's a little bit stronger than household bleach. And we currently have 2 14,000-gallon tanks and a 12,000-gallon tank. Again, they're very rarely completely full. We have one offline for the season, and we're doing some maintenance to it. So throughout the process, we have about 30,000 gallons on site at any one time.
So it's only 14%. It's like just opening a bottle of bleach.
A little bit, it's not stronger than that, yeah.
It's not like a chlorine still.
No. And it's nothing like if we were using elemental chlorine gas, which a lot of some places. This is a pretty safe product.
Well, we appreciate everybody coming out tonight. Yes, Rich?
Just one thing, Mike, on the employees leaving the site honking their horns as we're out of gate. That's not for the guard, that's for pedestrians. You can't see as you leave the site because of the fence and the trees. So if they're tapping their horn, it's to alert people on the street that the car is coming through.
Oh, good catch. We've asked Rich to stand down there by the gate and monitor the traffic leaving just to make sure that we weren't creating a nuisance in the neighborhood.
Because of the fence and trees, you can't see people until you're actually through the gate. So if they're tapping the horn, it's to let pedestrians know that somebody's coming through the gate.
Maybe we could have the guard stand and kind of direct traffic out on the street, all legal.
it's easy to enforce.
We have to think through this problem to solve it. I mean, there's better ways than just people walking around. Maybe we can put some barricades to warn the pedestrians just with the high traffic points, because there's only a couple hours that it's high traffic too. So, yeah,
It's easy problem to fix.
we can solve it, I think. But, yeah, thanks for bringing that up, Rich.
Well, thanks again, everybody, for coming. Need some banana bread if there's any left. We'll meet again in another quarter. We'll be doing this quarter.
John, you're an engineer? Yeah, you know a lot about Sunday standards. I said, oh, push it on. Good meeting, John. Design is 990 plan sheets and 4,000 pages. Well thought out. Really handy. So that's good. But, you know, it's like your name. I'll change it now. I got to go back to the office. It's such a critical project.